Hello and welcome to the Row Over podcast. I'm Ben and I'm joined here by Phil today. Um,
Hello?
and we're going to be talking about essentially just fixtures and head season to kick off our sort of new podcast pursuit. Um, yeah, we're sort of just looking to explore a little bit about what's going on with rowing, trying to sort of get a few more people involved, but a few more people interested, and essentially, from my perspective at least, the goal of this podcast is kind of let people in on the rowing world that aren't necessarily a part of it. Um, so if you've got your mum, your parents, your mum, your girlfriend, anyone that sort of comes down but doesn't really comes down, wants to watch, wants to sort of know what's going on, why you're sort of spending your whole life slogging away, going to training, never going out, being a bit of a loser, really. But from their eyes, that's what they're seeing, and kind of hopefully this should explain it a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we'll kick off with something that sort of just happened recently, which is the fixture series. Um, so we've sort of got a bit of a checklist here of kind of what we want to talk about and what we want to explore in terms of this. And for those that don't really know, we've got a few questions and answers that we collected um, yesterday that we can sort of go through, sort of explain a bit more about those sort of things. Um, but we'll kick off straight away with what are the fixtures? Do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so obviously, very famously, there's the boat race, um, which is between Oxford University and Cambridge University. And beforehand, they do a series of fixtures against other clubs in the UK. So, for example, Oxford Brooks, which is who me and Ben row for, or Leander, or anyone really who wants to do a fixture. Um, and it's on the Tideway, which is the Thames in London. Um, and it's usually two pieces, so it's great experience for both crews because obviously the non-boat race crews do it for head of the river practice, which is just a week, normally a week before the boat race. Um, yeah, and it's all just really good,
I think
valuable
the
experience.
the women's boats split into three, don't they? Or am I making that up? Or perhaps it changes between crews. I think a few of the girls did three pieces
Oh,
this
three
year.
pieces.
The Brooks women definitely did three against the Cambridge
Cambridge.
girls, and
Yeah.
I think Leander did three as well
Oh,
last week.
do you know? Okay, I've only ever done two pieces
Yeah,
when I've done a fixture.
yeah, as have I. But I mean,
Never got the joy of doing three pieces.
yeah. Um, so just to sort of delve a little bit deeper into that, so the actual course is in London on sort of the championship course where the actual boat race takes place. And that's between uh, Chiswick Bridge and
Putney Bridge.
Putney Bridge. Yep. Um, it's
Well, it's
on
actually
the London Embankment. Um, so it's quite a long course. Sort of 20 20-ish minutes of rowing for
yeah, it depends on stream and conditions and
yeah. So split into two, that's obviously a little bit easier on you. But it's a very sort of popular location for rowing, in general. Outside of uh London, clubs typically sort of train on their own stretches, on their own bits of river locally. But on that one stretch of river, there must be 30 different teams at least.
yeah, varying from all like university clubs, school clubs, like masters, like anyone. There's so many people.
Yeah,
Like
I think
it's never really, yeah,
yeah,
it's
when
never really appealed to me. Like rowing on the Tideway as a club because it just I don't know. I've got a lot of bad experiences, like conditions wise, being on the tideway. But
Yeah. The tideway is the river in London where the tide actually changes the way the not the way the stream goes, but the way the flow of the river goes almost.
yeah,
So the stream is always going in one direction, obviously from the top of wherever it is to the sea. But on the tideway, the stream sort of changes a little bit with the tide and sort of starts pushing you up in the wrong direction um, as you get closer to the coast. And as a result of that, if you're going with the tide and the stream, you can sort of put down some pretty ridiculous times. But if you're then against the stream and
it
against
just
the
takes
tide,
forever.
it takes forever. Um,
Yeah.
the boat race course is against the stream but with the tide, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So
So they're still getting quickly. Like,
they're still going very quickly because the tide kind of outweighs the stream. I,
yeah,
as far as I know. Um, so yeah, the boats are still going very quickly. A lot of sort of a bit of a travelator, really. You're kind of moving along, and no matter how fast you go, you're going to be pushed along a little bit extra on top of that. So that's kind of leads on to a next little bit to do with fixtures, is sort of the racing line and um, how you want to go about it.
yeah. I don't bloody know. Like, I think I've steered it twice and got it wrong both times. And most times when I'm doing it, I normally have a cox who's fairly experienced. Like, yeah, it's they say like I don't even know what lamppost it is under Hammersmith Bridge, or but it can make a huge difference. Like, obviously, you want to be where the stream is the quickest, so you go the quickest. But
But you've then also got to factor in the corners.
yeah,
And obviously, once you've passed Hammersmith going up round, there's a huge banking bend there where
yeah,
you've sort of got to decide: do I want to stick in the tide here, or do I want to try and cut the corner a bit? And I think that's kind of quite hotly debated, I guess. Obviously, ideally, you'd sort of be in the stream and on the inside of the corner, which is something that kind of quite unique to fixtures is because you've got two boats next to each other, both coxes are fighting for what they think is the best line.
yeah. It's a 1v1, isn't it? So
Yeah.
there's often a clashing, and yeah, I don't particularly like clashing, but you
So
just need to just
clashing is kind of
hold on
like
to your blade.
fixtures as well, quite often, is the coxes will sort of steer into each other just a little bit to try and get the edge there. And what can often happen is your blades will start overlapping. And I'll see if I can sort of get up some video of this and stick that on the social media
Yeah,
so you can have a look at that. But it's quite exciting because a lot can go wrong, but also if you do it well, it can sort of work in your favor as well.
yeah. You can definitely gain like a huge advantage from doing it. Like, I don't know, it just takes a lot of experience and a lot of trust from the crew and in like what the Cox is doing to be able to take the most out of the situation, I guess.
And also, if you
Like,
win the clash, you just feel like a bit of a big dog as well.
yeah, yeah, you're
I,
definitely the alpha in that
even if we're not
situation.
clashing, I know this weekend, I guess, slightly moving on here, we raced Oxford last weekend on Saturday. Um, in one of these fixture races, it was Brooks versus Oxford, and then Brooks B versus ISIS, which is the Oxford second date. And in the clashing, there was just a little tiny bit of clashing. There was no real big sort of collisions or anything, but
Before you
just
go
as it
ahead.
started getting a little bit dicey, uh, it's very easy to get overexcited. And what can happen is there's lots of shouting, lots of like basically just everyone giving it the big uns. It's kind of like a riot, really. Everyone's like shouting, screaming, trying to just get the other boat to get out of their way. and it's a bit of a battle, really. It's quite fun.
Yeah, it's because it's not really something you get to like do that much in rowing. Like at Henley, for example, there's no chance like the umpires would allow clashing, and like in normal lane racing, like you're in your lane. So if you go into the other lane, that's you've done something wrong there. Or like in head season, you're sort of set off single file. So it's very unique experience. Like, and people do look forward to it in some way, I guess.
And ultimately, the goal of clashing is to get out ahead of the other boat and take their line. And if you're out ahead of a boat, what you can then start to do is start washing down the boat behind you. And what that means is you're sending down dirty water, you're making the water bumpy, bobbly, and just a lot harder to row in for them. So you're ahead and you're also giving yourself the advantage of making the other crew slower. So that means you can sort of start to take the gas off and start to sort of ease out a little bit and just kind of move in your
Play
own
the game.
pace a little bit, play the game a little bit there.
Yeah.
Kind of play by your own rules a little bit. And it just makes the fixture a bit more exciting, a bit more like there's a lot more to gain from getting out ahead, winning the clashes, and getting onto your racing line nice and early, which means the start of the races tend to be pretty ballsy, really.
Yeah, and it's very important. Like you'll see, like if like in past boat races as well, they've often spend like a good couple of minutes trying to get straight, get the right line, and like waiting for the other person because it's basically like make or break for the whole race if you mess that up. Like
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, a big part of the fixtures is sort of the media and the attention that it gets. It's one of the sort of races where not only is it fun to be a part of, but it could be quite exciting to watch as well because the crew that wins obviously can often be 99% of the time is the better crew, but every now and then, if one Cox does something better or one crew does something better, or there's a little bit of tactics and a little bit of play there where you can kind of turn the tables a bit, and that just makes it a little bit more exciting to watch than other types of racing where it'll often just be whoever's put in the most training over the winter and whoever can pull the handle hardest wins and goes fastest. A sort of good
yeah,
example of that last year, I'd say, was our Cambridge race against Brooks versus Cambridge.
oh yeah, it was very tight the whole way in the first piece, wasn't it?
Yeah,
But
and
I feel like most fixtures, like or definitely most boat races, like it's close for like the first minute or two, and then one crew just gets ahead, and then you're just watching racing for like the next 15 minutes where one crew's just miles ahead. And it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's how do you make that? And like, it's a challenge for the commentators as well. Like, how do you make that exciting?
yeah. And I guess that's kind of something we could talk about here that's quite relevant to what we're trying to do, I guess, is just how to make that a bit more engaging. How could we make that a bit more exciting? And I guess one thing you could do is shorter courses. I guess splitting it into two makes quite a big difference there, really, because it gives you opportunity to sort of either double down on what you did on the last piece or potentially sort of
Try and claw one back
suffer
and score.
from suffer from the consequences of going a bit hard and not quite pacing yourself right or whatever it is, or even just giving the Coxes an opportunity to try and take a better line next time.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even like, so the course is, so when you raced Oxford this year, you did Putney to Chiswick,
Yeah.
and then did you do that again, or did you do Chiswick to
No, we
Chiswick Bridge?
continued to the boat race finish.
Okay. And where did the girls do? What did the girls do when they split it up into three?
I don't know. I'll actually look that up quickly.
Okay. because each piece that you would have done must have been about 10 minutes.
It was meant to be split half and half, but it's more like, I'd say maybe like 3/5 and 2/5. It's
Okay,
it's not quite
yeah, it
half
doesn't
and
quite
half.
work.
Blondie versus Brooks B in the women's race. The boat race start line to the Harrods Furniture Depository, then Barn
Oh,
Elm
okay,
to St Paul's, and then the milepost to Chiswick Steps. Okay, so the next topic we're going to talk about is sort of the head season in general, and I guess winter rowing in general, really. So rowing season is typically split up into two main types of racing, unless you're involved in the fixtures, in which case it's, I guess, slightly split into three, where you'll have the head fixture and then regatta season. I think I wouldn't be too far pushed to say most people prefer regatta season.
yeah, just because well, the weather's nicer, the racing's shorter, it's just more fun, I guess.
Yeah. So head season, the races range from anywhere from like 1,500 to
Six.
8K, 9K. You can have some really long races, um, which obviously hurt.
Yeah.
And they're not really much fun, to be honest. And I was actually discussing with Will earlier um, what we could do to make head races more exciting to watch, because time trials. So I should explain. Head races are essentially time trials. Every crew is timed from A to B, and whoever goes the fastest wins. Regattas are usually
Side by
six
side.
lane racing, sort of tournament based. So you'll have a quarterfinal, semi final, and a final, um, or potentially just a semi and
And
a
final.
final. Um, with sort of usually a time trial to sort of decide who's in which semi and in which final,
Yeah.
to start off with. Uh, so in terms of head racing, to make that more engaging and more exciting for not only the viewer but also as a rower, I would quite like to see more of a fixture based winter season overall, really. Um, that way, it's far easier for the audience to be engaged. It's a lot easier to film. It's a lot easier to kind of get people involved, sort of get people understanding what's going on. Because watching lots of boats go past in a long line, it's quite hard to judge speed, judge sort of who's the
Gauge who's
fastest
winning.
crew,
Yeah.
gauge who's winning. Whereas in fixtures, you could do sort of 2, 3 abreast and just get boats going down in sort of waves. Um, and I just feel like that would be a lot better, more exciting way of taking on the winter. What do
Yeah, but
you think?
in head season, like you can get like more people racing, like fixtures if you want to do it's normally 1v1. And so
Mhm.
that's only two crews at a time. Whereas a head race, like head of the river, for example, you have like I don't know, 300 to 400 crews turning up. So it's more accessible for people.
Yeah,
Um,
but would it be much of a stretch to say you've got 300 crews, send down 103 boat waves
yeah, that's true.
with sort of proper filming, proper footage? Um,
Yeah,
and then not only could you do that, you could sort of localize it a bit more as well and turn it into a bit of a league system. So potentially, if Brooks wanted to race Oxford again, we could race down on our home stretch. We could race sort of any local crews, and equally, sort of Durham and Newcastle could do their boat race of the North, and they could
oh
get
yeah,
sort of a certain amount of points for that. Something that we sort of discussed, and something my girlfriend brought up actually was you could sort of get different points for how much you win by. Like 3 lengths is 3 points, um, 1 length is 2 points, and sort of a canvas is one
Yeah,
point or whatever it might be. But it'd be quite an interesting thing, and you get a better gauge of sort of how everyone's doing the whole season, as opposed to what it is at the moment, where it's not really worth making the trip down for
uh,
Durham or Newcastle down to Reading Head to come and see how they might pit up against some of the sub
especially
crews.
especially like with other sports, for example, like at university sports, you'll have like a Bucks league, and they play like every Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas rowing, we have one Bucks regatta a year,
Yeah.
and so it's just I don't know. It's
And it's
not.
not like there's not enough sort of local competitors. Like you've
Yeah,
got Reading, you've got UL, you've got all the London crews,
yeah,
UCL,
and
and
I'm
you
sure
could
people
you
will
could
be happy
also
to
do
play it.
use all of your boats. So it wouldn't just have to be like your first eight against their first eight. You like Brooks have got 5 men's eights at least.
Yeah,
We could pit them against all of UL, UCL, like all these programs have got quite a lot of depth where they could definitely put out good squads and get quite a good bit of racing in. And even if it wasn't just universities, we could get different teams in. We could schoolboy rowing is coming along a long way. I
yeah,
know Brooks are racing Shiplake this weekend. Um, the Brooks third eight, I think, or fourth eight are taking on the Shiplake first eight.
no,
In sort of a private fixture this weekend. So anything along those lines where you could sort of rank yourself a little bit, get points throughout the head season, just to make it a bit more engaging and a bit more exciting, and sort of keep momentum rather than running into races like Marlow just before Henley, thinking we've got no idea what we're going to do here and no idea
yeah.
what we're going to place.
How do I stack up against everyone else? And you're going in a bit blind, really, aren't you?
Yeah. And it can also give an opportunity to crews that potentially are better at long distance racing. If you're doing like a 3K, 4K race, you might do a bit better than if you're doing a 2K flat out
Yeah,
sprint
yeah,
in a
definitely.
straight line as well. Like it sort of tests the coxes, tests some different skills, different tactics. Um,
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting.
so we've got a question here. Is there somewhere where we can watch the full races? So the fixtures are usually filmed either by Oxford or by Cambridge or by Brooks or by whoever's taking part in the fixture.
Yeah,
Last year, most of the races were filmed by Ludum, and they were also live streamed by Ludum, which made it sort of quite fun, and you could go and watch it at home. And there's
yeah,
some
that was
quite good graphics and things on there as well, with rate lines, like a lot
boat
was going on.
speed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was actually quite good to watch. I mean, the quality wasn't absolute
um,
top tier, but it's sort of the best you're gonna get in a rowing world,
yeah,
bar Henley and the actual boat race. Um, but yeah, if you want to go and watch all the videos there, you can sort of scroll through different YouTube channels of all the different clubs that you might want to follow.